whiskey before.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Spirited Live with me, Sam Nash, Great Ninja, and my friend, Mr. Brian Sykes, the California Single Malt Specialist, Brand Associate, replacement for the famous Scotsman Callum O'Donnell, whatever you want to call him. He is the California market representative, the main representative for the fantastic Speyside Distillery, Aberlour. Brian, hi.
Sam, how's it going, brother? How are you?
Good. What is your actual title? I really don't know what to put. I was like, California Single Malt Specialist kind of works?
Yeah, so traditionally, I'm the West Coast brand ambassador for Aberlour Single Malt. But since the pandemic is, among us still, I am, and we're doing everything digital. Callum and I, we are all over the place. So let's just go with brand ambassador.
So wait, I could have gotten Callum instead of you.
Callum?
Well, bye.
I don't know. It's up to you.
I kid, of course. And your fantastic counterpart, Gemma, just had her baby girl, so that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
After winning Icons of Whisky, no less.
Brand ambassador of the year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Amazing people and amazing juice. I don't know what else there is to want with Aberlour.
I'm biased, but I feel the exact same way.
Aberlour is one of those brands that I can't be impartial about. It's just not possible for me to be impartial because I love it. I could drink Abuna all day long. I got a half bottle from one of the guys down here. It was gone in not even 2 weeks, I feel like. So I just kept drinking it.
Hey, that's the best part, man. And, I feel like Aberlour is just such a quintessential Speyside. At the heart of it, it's very light, it's very delicate, very fruit forward, especially coupled with ex-sherry barrels. But that's, I'm in the same boat with you.
Now, I know it's sherry barrels, but it did sound like you said cherry barrels, which is funny.
I get that all the time. Every time I do a tasting, I'll mention that we age in ex-bourbon and ex-Oloroso sherry barrels. And, eventually someone will say, I'll say, reach out to them. What are you guys smelling? What are you guys tasting? And they'll say something like cherry, because they think that I've said cherry barrel. I don't know what a cherry barrel is. I don't think that's how they store cherry. Yeah, but we don't go anywhere near it. So we use Spanish oak and American oak, and those are the only two casks that we age Aberlour in.
Well, we have 5 SKUs here today. We're down 2 of the SKUs. We don't have the cask and with us, and we don't have the 19. Because the 19 is like $300 a bottle.
Yeah, and I actually think the 19 is fresh out in the California market, which is the only market it was in.
When we first set this up and we're talking about what SKUs we were going to go through, I called Wade's Wines out in Toluca Lake, and they still had a bottle. Not Toluca Lake, Calabasas, Agoura Hills, and they still had at least one bottle.
There's at least a few bottles out there on the shelves somewhere, but as far as what I can see on my side, distributor numbers, things like that, we are fresh out.
So let's stop chit-chatting and start tasting, shall we? So I kind of set up the order I was thinking of going into 12 to 16 to the 18 to the Abuna and then to the Alba. But I'm starting to think maybe we should go to Alba and then Abuna.
I agree.
Or do you want to finish with the ex-bourbon cask because there's no sherry, which can be wildly different from anything we had so far up to that point?
I think let's do that. Let's finish with Alba, because Abuna just kind of flows right in from the 18. And then we could just really blow our palates out at the end with some Alba. How about that?
Sounds good.
Awesome.
So these are display bottles from a friend of mine because I was very graciously sent some samples by my Aberlour rep. And so I had to borrow some display bottles from a buddy of mine, and I'm like, hey, what SKUs do I have? He's like, oh, I have everything. I'm like, oh, cool. He's like, yeah, I'm an Aberlour fanatic. I'm like, okay, great. They'll just be used for display.
Yeah.
So the real liquid that we're using is actually behind these bottles, you guys, because, little vials, it looks better to have this on camera than this on camera.
Yeah, plus it's a lot tougher to ship 5 bottles of whiskey quickly through the UPS there. Sam.
Very true.
Slancha.
Slancha. Now,
So
we just celebrated Burns Night together just a few weeks ago. You want to tell people about how Aberlour did the virtual Burns this year? I think that was really cool how, Aberlour, as well as Bruichladdich and Remy Cointreau and Lafroig all pivoted to virtual burn suppers this year.
Yeah, it was kind of insane, but it was a really, really good time. It was one of those things where right up until the moment we were all like, we don't know how we're going to pull this off, but we did. So essentially in New York, we had our brand lead, Andy Weir, who you absolutely know, and some of our
entire team.
Yeah. And our agency get together and create a Burns bubble. So everyone who came in got COVID tested every single day and, stayed in one single little area all together for a few days. They had musicians. They had, Andy was in there, and they had cooks and people bringing out the haggis and doing the procession. It was one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of, let alone been able to sit down and watch, because not only did we have the live component, but we had, myself and Gemma and Callum, the other 2 brand ambassadors, were in their respective homes, and we were able to get together and, break it up a little bit. So we had that. We had 2 of the actors from Braveheart came in and recreated a scene. We had, a traditional Scottish folk singer. She came in and did some arrangements of Burns poems and 500 Miles.
She came in virtually, right? If I remember correctly? Yep. She wasn't actually there. She was in her home in, Arizona or something.
Yeah, that was pre-recorded, so we cut it up with a couple of pre-recorded things. But it was a really good time, and honestly, man, it went off without a hitch. Still don't know how. We're all a little dumbfounded on how nothing messed up. But, with things like that, you're just
nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
I saw a few quick camera jumps that shouldn't have been there, to backstage kind of, but that's it.
Yeah, we can split hairs all day, but at the end of things,
majority of it went really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool, and the brand agency that you guys work with sent out a bunch of really fun Burns Night kits to some of the whiskey community members.
Yeah.
And, it included a couple of samples of the 12, the 16, Abuna, and Alba, I think, right?
Yep.
Or no, it was just 3, right? 10, 12, 16, and Alba, I believe.
It was 2 12s, 16, and Alba. And one of the 12s was for a hot toddy, and one of the 12s was for a toast.
I only got 1 12 in mine, so.
Well, I've
got plenty now, don't worry.
There you go.
And what I thought was really neat, albeit a bit bizarre, was haggis crisps.
Yep. Yeah, they sent through some haggis potato chips.
It's kind of hard to send haggis in the mail, but haggis crisps really, it was intriguing. Also, a quick hello to our friends, the Whiskey Crusaders, who are in the comments. They also are a fantastic whiskey YouTube channel. They actually stream Monday nights at 7 Pacific, so 9 Central. And they're really cool. It's a trio, Matt, and then Will and Sarah. And they're friends of mine, and they kind of got me started in this whole kind of whiskey YouTube scene.
There you go. Welcome, folks. How are you?
But yeah. No, please go ahead.
Burns Night was a really good time, and we had a lot of interaction. We had a ton of people join. I think we maxed out at 350 people.
Wow.
Yeah, and we love to do it again, and I think we will be doing some sort of live virtual hybrid next year.
Well, to Raleigh Burns!
Sláinte. So, really, on the 12 year, going in,
Before we get into the 12 year, while I'm sipping on this a little bit, I want you to go into Aberlour kind of in the brand history a bit and talk about the name. And the biggest thing I want to know, because Aberlour means mouth of the chattering burn, if I'm correct, which is the river that it sits on, right?
Yep.
The River Spey is known as the mouth of the chattering burn, yes?
So the River Spey is a little further away from the distillery.
Okay, so it's not the River Spey, gotcha.
Yeah, and mouth of the chattering burn is kind of anglicized into just mouth of a babbling brook, which is right where the distillery sits. In fact, the iconic red doors right behind me, right there, the iconic red Aberlour doors, if you walk out of those and you close your eyes, the way it bounces off, it sounds like you're in like a crowded cafe or something like that.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's where the name Aberlour came from, is mouth of the chattering burn. It sounds like a talking river going by. So the distillery was founded in 1879 by a man named James Fleming. He was a barley farmer who, I guess, decided he was bored.
Ian Fleming?
Not that I know of. But he was a barley farmer who just got bored of regular old dry barley and wanted to turn it into whiskey. So he built the Aberlour distillery about a mile down the road from the Walker's shortbread factory. Two of the biggest claim to fames from the town of Aberlour. So it's really awesome.
They recently, like 3 years ago, received a royal warrant, which is really cool. So it's now, I guess, Royal Walker's shortbread.
Yeah. But it's really awesome when you drive into the town of Aberlour, because the first thing you smell is shortbread cookies, and the next thing you smell is whiskey being distilled. And
that's why every burn supper you guys give out shortbread cookies, the Walkers?
Yep. That's it.
It was so hard for me. So if you watch the channel at all, you guys, you know that I've been on keto actually since August of 2020. So when I got the burn supper kit, it was really, really hard to not eat those Walker's shortbread in just like one bite. So I told my mom, who's English, and I'm like, hey, I have a gift for you. I have some Walker's shortbread. She's like, oh. So I managed to not eat them, gave them to her, and she devoured them in like 30 seconds flat. Brian, did I lose you? Uh-oh. Are we still live, you guys? Can you guys see me? Hey, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for that. Sorry, I have no idea how that happened. All of a sudden, it went blank, and I had to do a little refresh.
That was weird, yeah. I was just checking. I got my phone to check if we were live. Still, because sometimes my thing glitches out.
Our friend down there, Whiskey Crusader, says, "Yeah, we're still live." So we're definitely still live.
He also says, "Sounds like a smart guy. Grains into whiskey rather than just plain old grains."
I agree. I think it was one of the best decisions he ever made, and he actually became super wealthy, if you could imagine, by opening the distillery. He opened up the town of Aberlour's very first church, very first hospital, and very first community center, all of which are still standing and in use to this day. And in fact, sorry?
Quick question, if you don't mind my diverting. Something I was talking about on a recent show with actually Aberfeldy is Aber and the meaning of Aber. Now, since theirs is like the golden, I don't remember what Aberfeldy translates to, But we were trying to figure out if Aber meant burn or mouth or what. We were trying to figure out what Aber meant from Gaelic to English. Because obviously Aberlour, Aberfeldy, well, yes, they're one word.
Yeah.
Them both having that, in English, I guess, prefix. I don't know what you would really call it in Scots Gaelic. But that prefix, I was trying to figure out what Aber meant. Do you know?
Yeah, Aber is it's the burn. It's basically any body of water, right? Aber is just like a body of water. And
Finally, an answer.
Yeah, I don't know what Feldy. I think it's the Feldy burn. I think maybe it. But
it doesn't matter. I just wanted to make sure that I was correct. That Aber means like burn, the mouth of, or not the mouth of, but the burn.
Yeah,
that it means that river that it's on.
That is where we are. We're at right at the mouth of the Lower Burn.
Right.
So
you guys are at the mouth of the Lower Burn, the mouth of the Shattering Burn. So Aberlour, mouth of the Shattering Burn. Cool.
Yeah.
Please continue with what you're saying. I just had to get that off my chest because it was bugging me for months.
No worries, man. No worries. There's also this website. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's kind of new. It's called Google. And if you go on there, you can look up just whatever you want. It'll tell you. Sorry, that was funny.
Like Ask Jeeves?
Yeah, it's like Dogpile or like Netscape, something like that.
Oh man, Netscape. I grew up with Netscape, dude.
Sure, we all did, man. But yeah, so
no, man. Some of the people who watch this, who were like younger, like the younger generation, like the newer 21s, like a little like the 22s, 23s, they didn't have Netscape.
Yeah, they. Well, now you're aging me. I'll be 30 next week, so now you're aging me. Feeling old now.
I'll be 29 in November, so happy early birthday, buddy.
Thank you, brother. But yeah, so James Fleming really became important. But we were talking earlier about his family crest. His family crest is a crest that says "Let the deed show," right? And that is important. And he got that. And basically, "Let the deed show" means let your actions be who describes you as a person. Whiskey Crusaders. Look, I'll be there. I'll be there soon.
I'm 39. Lucky you two youngins.
Yeah.
Are you going to tell us to get off your lawn next, Matt?
Yeah.
And by the way, guys, for everyone watching, this is actually a shorter stream. Today we're doing 1 hour instead of 2 because I'm an idiot and forgot to tell Brian I've been doing 2 hours and asked him if he could do 2 hours. So he scheduled me right in the middle of 2 tastings that he had a break with.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm here and we're hammering through it, man. How is this 12-year treating you?
The 12-year is good. It's a great entry point for Aberlour, although I feel like it's a little thin. I felt this way recently. My taste palate has evolved to thicker, more heavier malts, not just cask strength.
Yeah.
I feel like the 12 is just a little bit thin.
Yeah, so the 12 is really great backed up in a cocktail, is what I've always said. It's an amazing, old-fashioned highball, whatever it may be. Always delicious in a cocktail. But we can pop over to the 16, see how that treats us.
Absolutely. I won't say no to some 16.
So the 16 is, honestly, I think it's my personal favorite in the lineup. I love them all, but let's just say I keep a lot of samples of the 16-year around the house. So.
Now, right off the nose, this is much richer.
Yeah, it's a lot darker on the nose. A lot more bold.
And a little bit darker in color.
A tiny bit, yeah. So as we go up in age, we're actually going to put a little more of the ratio of the ex-sherry barrels into the blend. So we age in ex-sherry and ex-bourbon barrels, and then we up that ratio as we go on in age.
Mm-hmm.
So coats the mouth a little more.
This is when it gets oily and jammy on the 16.
Yeah. the angel share is super prevalent in this situation, right? Because obviously we all know what the angel share is. It's the evaporation of alcohol during the aging. And I always liken the angel share to people who like don't have a good idea about it. I liken it to when you're making like a chili or a stew or like a curry or something like that, and you have to simmer it to build all that flavor. That's what happens inside of a whiskey barrel, just on a longer span of time. So that's, the 16 is basically the 12 year just simmered for a longer amount of time.
Sure.
Really bold, delicious, coats the inside of the mouth a little more, still works amazing in cocktails, but does really, really well on its own, on the rocks, neat, however
Now,
you want it.
On the 12 and 16, what's the barrel entry?
It differs. It really just depends on which barrel it's being put in. But it dives in 130, 140.
And it goes in the ex-bourbon right off the still, it goes in the sherry right off the still.
Split it up. So half of it goes in.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
See, Aberlour does a dual maturation.
Yep, dual cask
maturing it simultaneously.
Yeah. And that's something a lot of people actually misconstrue about Aberlour. They think that we finish, and we don't. We don't finish anything at the distillery. We age simultaneously. So different than
Gotcha.
some of the Balvenie stuff, or in the American market.
The Glenlivet portfolio, let's stick to Pernod,
right.
because we're talking about a Pernod brand, different
right.
than the Glenlivet portfolio, or different than, Jameson or even Chivas.
Sure. And Jameson has those really interesting like cask finishes, and we do it differently. We age simultaneously throughout. In fact, right behind me, you can see a little bit of this picture. Right here is the sherry butts, and on the back wall here, that is the bourbon barrels. So
for everyone watching, remember, actually, I don't know what my point was going to be, so never mind.
No worries.
I'm just going to sip more whiskey.
Let's do it. And with the 16 year, so with the 12 year, the nose on it is, to me, just pure red apple, right? If you still have 12 year, it's just like Granny Smith, or not Granny Smith, Red Gala apple just punching you right in the nose, right? And then on the 16 year, that moves over into like the fig and raisin territory, which is really showing the influence of the sherry on that.
For me, on the 12 year, I get more of like, a malty chocolatey note than I do that apple note. I can kind of see some of that apple, but I get more of like a malty chocolatey note.
Yeah. I think I'm so nose blind to malt at this point that it's so far off. I mean, it's definitely nutty, obviously, because of the barley. Barley is so chewy and dense and nutty and earthy. But I don't know, that red apple just hops right out of me. But also, it's all subjective, right?
Yeah. That is the beauty of whiskey, or even spirits in general, is the subjectivity of it when it comes to, flavor profiles that you like or don't like, or that you do or do not pick up.
Right.
I mean,
I get that
we're talking about it right here with the 12 and the 16. But is it, as we go higher, especially to the Abuna and then the Abuna Alba, that's good. I feel like it'd be even more prevalent because it is at barrel strength, at cask strength.
Right. And, I get the question all the time because I do virtual taste and toast. It's kind of what my job has evolved into, for people who may or may not know. I basically hold these virtual tastings, but in a larger format with more people, whiskey groups, companies, things like that. And essentially, the number one question I get is, how do you drink whiskey? How do you drink it? Right?
Any way you want.
Exactly. My answer is, the only way to screw up drinking whiskey is to not drink whiskey. That's the only way to mess it up, right?
No, the only way to screw up drinking whiskey is to drink it in a way you don't enjoy.
Sure. But if you enjoy it mixed with ginger ale, whatever,
Great.
go for it. Mountain Dew, I don't care. I think whiskey has gotten really.
I had a manager interview me once for a bar back position, and my resume obviously is very whiskey certification heavy and spirit certification heavy. So he sat me down, we were having an interview, and he said, look, if a guest comes to you and orders a 30-year-old Japanese whiskey and they want it on the rocks, what do you do? And it was a semi-casual conversation. So I told him, I had to resist a grimace just now, but I'd give it to them. I might suggest, hey, try it on its own first, and I'll give you the rock or rocks from the side, so you can then add it. See if you've never had it before, neat.
Sure.
But if you say, thank you, but I would like it on the rocks, then cool, absolutely, no problem. Here you go, because you're paying for it. That's what you wanted. That's what you asked for.
Yeah.
I turned to him and I said, what would you do? He said he would refuse to serve it to them. He would give them the 30-year-old whiskey, neat, and then the rocks on the side without asking for permission to do that.
Sure. I mean, whatever. As long as the customer's getting whiskey and rocks, I guess it doesn't really matter. But, I had a guy.
In terms of larger hospitality, in terms of, their order, no, it doesn't matter. In terms of, hospitality and giving the customer and not putting our own biases into it, then it absolutely matters. The guest wanted 30-year-old Japanese whiskey on the rocks. The way I see it, my answer differed than his answer because I was asking the guest of, hey, have you ever had this before? If not, I would like to suggest trying it this way first. If not, not a problem at all. I will still give you your order, no problem.
Sure. And, I bartended for 10 years. I was a beverage director in many different restaurants and restaurant groups. And the only time I've ever really done something like that is a guy came in and ordered a Van Winkle flight we had. And he tried it and said, let me get a little ginger ale in this. It was 3/4 of an ounce of the lot B, the 10-year, the lot B, and the 15. And it was like a $275 flight or something like that. And he said, let me get a little ginger ale in each one of these. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you ginger ale on the side and you do it. Because if I put the ginger ale in there and then you don't like it, then I'm out $275 flight. So I'm going to give it to you on the side.
Yeah, that's a different story.
You add it how you want, right? So, Emily Chambers, hello, how are you? Any questions about Aberlour at any point, folks? Go ahead and holler.
Hey, Emily, welcome to the show.
Right.
So we've gone through the 12, we've gone through the 16. Let's move on now to the 18.
18. Now, when was the last time you've had 18?
Oh, man, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I mean, did you have it last year in San Jose at Burns? Here we go again. I'm just going to remove him from the stream, even though his face is kind of funny. He has a bit of connection issue, you guys. So for once, it's not my connection, it's actually his connection. He'll be back any second, but in the meantime, hi, how are you? Tell me, what's going on, you guys? I'm going to drink some of this Aberlour 18 while we wait for Brian to, get his connection back. And we said that's a great way to bartend. Absolutely, I agree completely. In terms of, our jobs as bartenders, it is literally our job to give you what you want. And we're basically paid to help you party or, drink amazing whiskey, whatever. Oh, Brian's back. I was just telling you, I'm going to say this is a great way to put it. I was just saying, as bartenders, our job is basically to make sure you're having a good time.
Sure.
And if you want, ginger ale on your Pappy Van Winkle flight, absolutely, we're not going to stop you. But you took the approach, which I respect, of, hey, if I do this for you and you say I don't like it, then my manager could come and be like, well, you did it, so you're responsible because we're gonna like, yes, I will
Right.
give that. I'll get that in 1 second, Matt. The manager could be like, well, you're responsible because you did it. So giving a ginger ale side, that in that scenario, I feel like it's okay because it is such an expensive flight of harder to acquire whiskey.
Right. Yeah.
And we said it's a great way to give new people options so they can learn and want to know, and they want to know more. Absolutely. And Matt's asking for history about how the expression came about. Which expression, Matt? The 16, the 18, the 12, Abuna, Alba?
Yeah. So have you gone in for the 18 year while I was kicked off?
I just started, actually. My question to you before you vanished because of internet issues. Did you have the 18 at San Jose's Burns last year?
I believe we did. I think so.
I think that was the last time I had it.
Yeah. So going into before I get into the expressions and stuff like that, diving into the 18 year, this is a sherry bomb, right? Obviously not as much as the
Absolutely. Stewed fruits, apples.
Yeah. Obviously not as much as the Abuna, but definitely definitely a sherry bomb. So John, that's
a great question. We will actually touch on the Abuna in just a minute. If you don't mind holding off, we will be more than happy to go deep dive into Abuna for you. And it's actually spelled Aboon, ADH, not DAH. But that is just a little bit of nitpicking from me.
So, and to answer the Whiskey Crusader question, how our expressions came about were just kind of out of necessity, right? So James Fleming, when he opened the distillery, knew that he wanted seasoned barrels. He wanted barrels that were easily accessible, and he wanted barrels that he could get a good supply of. So he approached a sherry bodega in Spain and said, look, we'll take your barrels, right? We'll take everything you got. Every barrel that you're able to let go of, we'll take them. This was in 1879. Bourbon didn't come around until 1903. And then, a couple decades later, there was a real bummer of a decade called Prohibition. So bourbon barrels weren't really making their way over.
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
Bourbon barrels weren't really making their way over to Scotland until about the 1950s, right? Early 40s to 50s. So the best barrels that we could find were Oloroso sherry barrels from Spain. This became the backbone of what we do. And actually, to this day, we still have a relationship with the same bodega that we were getting the sherry barrels from previously. And we are not going to change anything. We age an ex-bourbon and ex-Oloroso.
And that leads me to my next question of, are these actual sherry barrels or are they sherry finishing barrels? And for those who are watching who don't know the difference, the short version is sherry barrels versus finishing barrels. Sherry barrels are barrels that were actually brought from the bodega. They are real barrels that age sherry for however long they wanted to age it in. Be it Oloroso, PX, Amontillado, etc., or even Fino. And I would love to see more Fino casks. That'd be a fun special release, I think. Or are they finishing barrels wherein you put like some Scottish-made sweet wine in there that is the equivalent of sherry, just long enough to season the cask, and then you dump it?
No, these are sherry barrels. They're Spanish oak. They're from Spain, and they are as real as it gets. Definitely. I know
a lot of distilleries nowadays have to use the finishing barrels. They're not trying to be disingenuous, but they have no other choice.
Sure.
Because the bodegas in Jerez are learning that there's a premium for these. We can sell these for a premium, and also
we know
they're using them a lot, especially from the Solera. Good luck getting a barrel from one of the Solera systems. Forget about it.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's
again,
it's
sorry, Brian. Just again, for those who don't know, because I am trying to make this channel accessible for everyone. Think of a pyramid, but made of barrels. So you have like 5 on the top, and then you have like 6 or 7 on the bottom, 9, 11, 13, and the top goes into the bottom, and that goes into the bottom below that, and below that, and below that. So they're never actually empty. So the ones you get from the very bottom is a finished product that's ready to be bottled. And as you are emptying that, you're putting in new sherry.
right.
So that is a Solera system.
Yeah. I like to talk to rum drinkers about Solera aging because it kind of pisses them off. I go, oh, you like? They're like, I can get a bottle of 23-year-old rum for $40. Why do I got? I'm like, okay, yeah, the rum was 23 years old. At some point, it was 23 years old. So yeah, I mean, we definitely use straight up sherry barrels. I mean, the real deal, straight from Spain. They come in to our cooperage. They get fixed up and sent right over. Sherry finishing is something of necessity. It's not always the worst, but we're doing it the right way. I have a sherry finish.
Can you disclose the bodega?
Sorry?
Can you disclose the bodega that you're using?
Nope. I cannot. Yeah. I can disclose the bourbon distilleries we use, all of them, wherever.
All of them.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, the cooperage just buys, hundreds of thousands at a time. And just stacks them up in these massive pyramids. And I get that question all the time. Who's the bourbon distillery you guys get from? I'm like, yes.
Just yes. What have you personally seen when you were at the distillery?
What have I seen?
Personally, bourbon barrels. What have you seen personally?
Oh, man. There's a ton of Buffalo Trace. And I think that's just because Buffalo Trace is dumping a lot right now.
Oh, yeah.
They're in such high demand. It's pretty much what you would expect. Buffalo Trace, Heaven Hill, Four Roses, that kind of stuff. I think the most interesting one that I saw was a Koval barrel. I was like, oh,
a Koval barrel. Wow.
Yeah.
I assume Koval used micro barrels, like 35 gallons, not, full 53s. Because they're bigger now, but they've been so small for so long.
So there was a smaller barrel, but there's some experimentation going on in the warehouse, which happens in that's not a big, crazy thing. There's experimentation going on in every distillery warehouse in the world, but it was their half barrel, but it was in, all Kentucky or
that's
other.
That's a great question, Matt. He asked, are you using barrels only from Kentucky, or are you using barrels from, like Indiana or New York, or even, like California bourbon?
Yeah, we use mainly Kentucky and MGP, just because we don't really buy from like private distilleries. We buy from the big conglomerates. Pernod trades with Diageo and big things like that. Where Pernod gets from.
Now, are you guys using a lot of Smooth Ambler?
Yeah. What we can, Smooth Ambler is they kind of sell a lot of
a lot of MGP juice still, but nonetheless.
Yeah. So it's definitely from all over the place, but it's just what you would expect, MGP and Kentucky.
So let's jump into John's question. He said he picked up an Aberlour, but he hasn't opened it yet. How much different is the Abuna? John, first of all, Abuna is different than anything else that Aberlour makes, in that the Abuna series is cask strength. They're done in batches, and Abuna is just pure addictive Scotch whiskey.
So this
I know I keep talking over you, Brian. It's just because I've talked about Aberlour and heard so many Aberlour trading contations. I could possibly lead this little chat myself.
Makes my job easy, man. I
just want to know what bottle you did pick up, John.
Yeah. If you have regular Abuna or if you
Oh,
have Alba, are we diving into Abuna here?
yes.
All right, let's do it. So
Oh,
the things that make Abuna special and different than what we have is basically, echoing what Sam said. Abuna is cask strength, right? For those, I'm sure all of you know, but if there's anyone out there that doesn't, Abuna is so yeah. The Abuna from the 12 is probably the two most different whiskeys we have on our spectrum. The 12 year is a 40% ABV, about half bourbon to half ex Oloroso sherry barrels. There is a lot different. Sam is showing the color off there. The Abuna is like almost opaque. So the main differences are the cask strength of it, right? So it's
great. He
fully,
grabbed the 12 year.
yeah, fully from the barrel to the bottle. The batch I have right now is batch 64. It's 59.9%, so just under 120 proof, which is a lot different than 40%, which is 80 proof. The Abuna is aged exclusively.
This bad boy is 60.9. The one
Yeah.
I'm borrowing from Vadim, rather. So
What is
big
that?
thank you, by the way, to my friend Vadim, who's an Aberlour fanatic located here in the Los Angeles area. He let me borrow his bottles that he has so I could have them on display for the show, and then I can use the samples that were graciously provided me by Aberlour for actual tasting and drinking.
There you go. Yeah. The Abuna.
Now, I'm gonna ask you a little bit about the history of Abuna,
Yeah.
because some of the old single malt ambassadors for Pernod Ricard, who used to represent the entire portfolio before it was kind of split up, used to talk about finding a bottle of Abuna in a newspaper in a wall at the distillery during an expansion.
Yeah. Yeah. You want me to tell us
about that? Is that true?
Definitely. So the distillery was founded in 1879. In 1890, there was a fire, which was destroyed, a good amount of the distillery, but they were able to get back up. I'm here with this job today, so it wasn't detrimental to operations, right? Fast forward from 1890 to 1970. Pernod Ricard approaches Aberlour, says, look, we love your whiskey. We want to make you international, not just Scotland, but we need to, sign some paperwork and do some construction, blah, 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 up the operation, put in more equipment, things like that. They said, sure enough, where do I sign? Sign on the dotted line. Now, during the construction, they were knocking down walls. And this is the most impressive part to me because the bottle did not break, but they knocked down a wall. And inside a wall, they found a bottle of whiskey wrapped in a newspaper that said "Fire at the Aberlour Distillery," dated from 1890, right? And what was in that became what is Abuna today. And Abuna is Scotch Gaelic for the original, or of the origin, right? And that's where it comes from, because that is how this Abuna is how whiskey was being made when we founded our distillery all the way in the late 1800s. And this is what we're drinking today, right? And it took from 1970 to 1999 to fully get used to the process and make it what we need it, right? So the important things about Abuna: cask strength, aged solely in Oloroso sherry barrels, and non-chill filtered, right? That's my favorite part of Abuna, is that it is non-chill filtered. Chill filtering is a really big, nerdy whiskey concept. But essentially, in wood, there's oil. When you put the whiskey into the wood, that oil gets into the whiskey. And then what happens when oil gets cold? It seizes up, right? Think about the coconut oil on your shell.
From a liquid to a semi-solid, yeah.
So that makes the whiskey cloudy. Not a good look marketing-wise. So what they started doing is they started taking giant super cooled charcoal filters and dumping the whiskey through it. And on one end, you have, the whiskey with the oil in it. And on the other end, you have whiskey without the oil. Supposedly, it tastes exactly the same. But the question that I'd like to ask everyone when I talk about chill filtering is, have you ever had a French fry that was baked in an oven versus a French fry that was deep fried in fryer oil, and which one is better, right?
Fryer oil.
Every single time. And there's a scientific reason for that. It's because oil is a medium for flavor, right? So when you drink a Buna, that oil is coating the inside of your mouth, and it's covering your entire palate with flavor, right? So that
By the way, Matt says he's mad now because he was right on the pronunciation and others had a different pronunciation.
Yeah. Everyone's going to tell you it's Abuna or
Abunad.
Or
Abunda.
I mean, I see like million subscriber whiskey channels pronouncing it wrong. You know, I see
and
it.
Here I am, sub 100, and I get it right without even thinking.
Yeah. So I wouldn't feel bad. Everyone pronounces it wrong. We like to say it's Abuna, like Hakuna Matata, you know, from The Lion King.
Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata, exactly.
If I can diverge for a second, a couple of years ago, Beam Suntory hosted an event called Stories from the Still, and they had their master ambassador Simon Brooking in. He was talking about Auchentoshan Scotch whiskey.
Yeah.
And he heard Auchentoshan. He's heard all sorts of mispronunciations on the name. And he told me, and he told the rest of the class too, of course, but I like to talk it just me, being special like that. Say it like Sean Connery. Auchentoshan off the bolt.
That's it, man. That's it.
Hello to our friend Tom T. Squared, who just got home from work.
Hello.
Good for you. His tail end. He's doing an hour stream today, Tom. So you'll have to watch the replay tomorrow when it's live on YouTube.
There you go.
Now, with the Abuna, what are you barreling it at?
Same.
What's the Angel share?
The Angel share, it's hard to say because it's a blend of barrels between 5 and 25 years old, right?
Really?
So
now that I didn't know.
Yeah,
that's I'm assuming the 25-year-old is like, less than 1% of the blend.
Right. So it's hard to really say. Now, if you taste Abuna, you understand that the young whiskey isn't most of it, So the price on Abuna hovers around 99 USD. We didn't age because, as we all know, if you want to age a bottle of Scotch, you have to put in the youngest barrel that you have blended into it. So it would be a 5-year-old Scotch selling for almost double the price of our 12-year-old. So marketing-wise, that's why we called it Abuna, because it's between 5 and 25, a bunch of different barrels. So the Angel share, I guess, about 40%, if you were to give it an average, 40 to 30, I would say.
Gotcha. Now, I do want to ask one more nerdy question before we get into the Alba.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the fermentation type of yeast you guys are using.
So we use Saccharomyces cerevisiae, just like everyone else. And we do high gravity fermentation. I mean, it's pretty.
Now, what is high gravity fermentation? Even I don't know that.
So high gravity fermentation is essentially fermenting at a higher alcohol level, right? The original gravity of something is, where it is in the work process. So we distill at a higher percentage than other places. That way it gets distilled at a higher percentage, enters the barrel at a higher percentage, and becomes more flavorful on the back end because you're not losing as much alcohol, right? So Abuna comes out of the barrel at almost 120 proof. When it entered the barrel, 140-ish or something like that. So not really losing a lot, and really, really carries the flavor through it. And then, yeast is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So traditional kind of brewer's yeast, But the thing about
Tom
yeast...
says he didn't realize, wrong one. Didn't realize that there was that old a Scotch in the Abuna. He's got back 67. Tom, I didn't know either until he just mentioned it. And I've sat down with his brand lead. I've sat down with their former national brand ambassador. I've sat down with everyone from Aberlour, and no one has ever told me that.
Yeah. I mean,
Bill said he's taking his time, taking time to get used to it because they're so concentrated and strong.
Don't be afraid to, toss a couple of drops of water in there to open it up.
So actually, I was going to recommend 50-50.
Yeah, I normally go a little less than 50-50. I go about 40% water to 60% whiskey, but I toss in a good amount there. Because
my preference obviously is drinking it neat, straight up, no water added, but my local guy, Ken Baranda, who's fantastic, before he was development manager for NBV, when he was just, the NBV ambassador.
Yeah.
NBV, by the way, guys, stands for New Brand Ventures, and it's a division of the Pernod Ricard, local sales and ambassador teams.
I was talking to Ken today.
Pardon?
I was talking to Ken today.
Oh, how's he doing?
He's doing good, man. Doing good. We're all doing.
We just sent off a friend of ours, I guess, to Miami. Matthew Goldberg headed to Miami, but that's just a conversation for another time. Because no one else on here knows Matthew. He recommended I try it with 50-50 water to whiskey. And I did, out of respect for Ken. It was good. It wasn't my jam, but it was good. It tasted fine.
Yeah.
I can't stand whiskey on ice. Like, I was out with Callum once before he left LA, and he ordered 2 Aberlour. He ordered one on the rocks and then a neat one one with a special water for him, and gave me the one on the rocks. And I'm like, okay. And I had to force my way through it. It didn't taste anything like Aberlour to me.
I don't know. I'm completely different, man. I'm just always warm. I run hot, So when I'm sitting out on the porch or something, toss I have the big 2-inch ice cubes. I toss one of those into 16-year. Delicious. I love it.
Hey, to each their own.
Exactly.
I think one of the album, because we are starting to run low on time, as we are doing an hour today. Let's do it on the Alba. And while I'm trying to open this piece, Jesus Christ, did you put this damn thing on with a vice grip?
Well, I didn't want it to leak on you, man.
This much isn't going to leak.
Hey, you try. We do what we can.
I can't even open this thing.
Oh, you got it.
Literally. My next question should be, is there anything that you can talk about special release wise coming down the pipeline?
No. Just keep your eyes peeled. Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes peeled. There are some things happening. Nothing I could quite give details on yet. Over in the UK, if you have any connections over there, they just released
the new 14.
Yeah.
We lost Brian again. God damn it. Thanks, dude. No, it wasn't my fault this time. It was on there really dang tight because he had all this tape on them before. So, it was taped. Emily, if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're asking where you should start with Aberlour coming from bourbon. And with Brian back, he can answer that question as well. But I would definitely say start with a 12-year. And just go in the order we tasted today, actually. Unless you're drinking barrel-proof bourbons, on the regular, then skip the first 3 and go right to the Abuna.
Yeah, I would say if you're a huge bourbon fan, start with 12, and if you
like cooking with gas, Emily.
if you like cask strength, maybe just jump from 12 to Abuna Alba with a little bit of water added. That'll work, perfectly. I think Alba's good if you add water, even if you're not a cask strength whiskey drinker. You know, that's the beauty of cask strength is you can bring it right to where you like it.
Very true.
Yeah.
Now, the Alba is 100% ex-bourbon or 100% virgin?
100% ex-bourbon.
Gotcha.
First or second fill. So
Gotcha.
really, 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 really a lot going on with the Alba. I'm such a big fan of it.
Love a good oily cask strength. Emily, you would love the Abuna then. If you like cask strength and you like sherry cask and you like Scotch, the Abuna's got everything. Hey, Brian, are
Yeah,
you guys hiring?
man, it would be nice, but Gemma will be back. She'll be back. Uh, so,
Well, let Gemma take over, the West Coast. Move Dom back East Coast. You take over, I don't know, Central. Send Callum back to Scotland, and I'll take over your job.
yeah, there you go. I'm sure Gemma and Don would love being split up with a newborn.
Again. No,
Um,
seriously though, congratulations to Gemma and Dom. That's fantastic. Dom is going to be joining me likely in April, actually, for a stream, April or May, and I'm really looking forward to having him on here to talk about like Longmorn or Scapa, some of the West covered Scotch brands from Pernod.
yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, man, it's going great. And, if anyone's looking for anything new coming down the pipeline, I would definitely say just keep your eyes peeled. There's some really, really cool stuff coming out soon. Nothing I can really dive deep
That
into.
is sulfuric as hell.
Yeah, sulfuric, dude, really minerally.
Buttery, though.
Yeah. So super. It smells like Oreos to me. I get like vanilla cream.
Congrats on Tiny Human, Emily says to Gemma and Dom.
Yeah. But very citrusy, but also kind of like an Oreo thing with like vanilla cream and chocolate on the nose. Really, really enjoyed that a lot.
I get Dunkaroos.
Dunkaroos are vanilla, so that makes sense. And
yeah. God, I remember getting Dunkaroos when I was a kid. I used to bring them to school. I felt like the coolest person ever having Dunkaroos.
Well, look, Sam, I have to jump off soon, but before I go, I really wanted to thank you for having me. Thank everyone for the really awesome questions. If anyone has any extra questions, you can visit us at aberlourallaccess.com. And that's our main website. And what's really awesome about Aberlour All Access is you can go to that website, and obviously you can look up where to buy a bottle or where to have a dram at your local. But you can also chat with an ambassador. So there's an area on there where you can basically dive in. That's it. Yeah. Except for the S, it's an R. Right there at the end. So chat with an ambassador. And I'm on there, Callum's on there. We're on there taking questions. It's between noon and 8 p.m. no matter what time zone you're in. So noon and 8 p.m. There's always someone there. You can also go on there, and there's a little area where you get a personalized leather bottle neck hanger.
Oh yeah, so mine's near the room. I should have brought that on camera.
Yeah, it's totally free. You go on, hang it on your brand new bottle of Aberlour, and it makes a good gift. Whatever you want, it's a good time. So, hopefully,
well,
if
Brian, thank you so much for joining us. I know you got to go. I'm gonna cut you off here because I want to just send you out with a little bit of a toast. And also, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Next week is going to be massive. I won't reveal the guest just yet because I want to nail down the lineup first. But think one of the biggest, well-known Scotch distilleries in the world. And again, thank you for watching. And please do what the banner says to remember to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. I am this close to 100 subscribers, guys. So once I hit 100, I can finally have a goddamn channel URL. It's customized, so you can find me easier. and then I'll feel legitimate. Where instead of like, hey Brian, come do me a favor, like we're friends and like colleagues, do this show with me, instead of like, hey, actually I have a good following, come to the show with me. So Brian, there are good ships and there are wood ships, and there are ships that sail the sea, but the best ships are friendships, and may they always be. Slanchava.
Slanchava.
See you all next week.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one.